Hey folks, BENTHELOONEY here. Before I get to the video, I have a few things I want to announce. If you're just here to watch me talk about Banjo-Kazooie, go ahead and skip to this time of the video to dive right in. First of all, I just want to remind everybody that I'm very active on Tumblr. I've been making a lot of drawings and posting them recently, so if you guys want to check out my work and want to help support me, go ahead and follow me on there. I go by the name Ben Tannehill. I also have a Twitter account where I'm constantly posting updates, drawings, and just some feel-good quotes. So, if you have a Twitter, go ahead and follow me at BenTheLooney. It would also be good to follow me on there as I post all my videos, and I've heard that YouTube has been automatically unsubscribing people from YouTube channels. I want to make sure you guys get to see my stuff, so that's just information to keep in mind. Anyway, time for the big announcement. People have been asking me why I haven't been making cartoons for a month now. Well, I've been in the process of trying to find a day job to keep me financially secured, as this YouTube thing hasn't been going the way I predicted it, due to the broken system of the website, and having this added stress was making it hard for me to put cartoons I was satisfied with out every week. It might not show in the videos, but my cartoons take a while to make. Keep in mind, I'm one man doing all the writing, animating, and editing myself. Big props to Dorito Butler for taking time out of his day to voice Daisy, and giving me moral support to keep going. Give him a big round of applause. That being said, feeling overwhelmed with stress, I took 1 week to do some drawings and think about what I want to do, and I came up with an idea. I want to make animated movies. I feel the stories I want to tell are better suited for feature films. Also, I feel like making films will make it easier for me once I finally get a full-time job. That way, I can take my time to make each movie good, not focus on crapping out a cartoon every week. No worries, I'll still be sure to try to get a video to you guys out each week, but they'll be simple, like these speed draw videos I've been making for the past few weeks. So, that's something to look forward to. Don't worry, there will be Daisy and Dexter in the future. They'll just be in movie form. My first movie will be called New Sensations. You can find out the details about it on my DeviantArt account. So, people have been asking me a lot about video games and such. Truth be told, I'm not a gamer. I haven't played video games in a long while, and my other interests have just caused me to lose focus on games in general. However, there was a time when I was a tyke when I did play a lot of video games, because when you're a kid, you have infinite time to spare. So I figured I'd dedicate a video series to talk about the games that I played when I was a kid. I don't know where else to start but my favorite video game franchise, Banjo-Kazooie. I remember I was around the age of 6 or 7 when I first played the original Banjo-Kazooie. A Friday tradition of mine was going to the video store and renting a game to play over the weekend. My family never had a lot of money, so the Nintendo 64 was the only game system I had for a while. So I played a lot of N64 games. I remember one Friday, I was scanning the video store shelf to pick out a game, and the one that stood out to me had a bear with a red bird in his backpack running away from a giant green witch. My childhood imagination ran wild with what this game could be. I picked up the game and my mom rented it for me. I took it home and played it, and it changed me. It was unlike any game I played at that point, mostly because the Nintendo 64 was the first game console I had, and I was still new to video games. Point is, the game completely blew my little mind. It wasn't until later in life when I grew to appreciate all the artistry the game has. The plot of the first game is pretty straightforward, borrowed straight from Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Gruntilda the witch, who speaks entirely in rhymes, is told by her talking cauldron that a little girl bear is the prettiest in the land. Grunty ain't having any of that, so she swoops down from her castle and kidnaps the girl, named Tootie. She happens to be the sister of the protagonist, Banjo, as he and his best friend Kazooie, a bird who lives in Banjo's backpack, set off on a quest to stop Grunty and save Tootie. On paper, this sounds like the stupidest idea for a game, but in execution, it is one of the most original, creative, and all-around fun games ever. What I love about Banjo-Kazooie is the game expanded my childhood imagination. Growing up in an area full of wide open spaces, I've always loved going on long walks and discovering areas that I've never seen before. In Banjo-Kazooie, that's the main goal. Exploring new worlds to find golden jigsaw pieces called Jiggies in order to open up doors to even more worlds until you find Gruntilda and defeat her. I loved taking my time to collect each Jiggy as I wanted to soak in as much of each world as I could before I had to move on. In the game, there's a shaman named Mumbo Jumbo who helps you along the way by changing you into different animals, which allows you to unlock new missions and Jiggies to collect. The game had so much packed into it that I wasn't able to beat it all until my teen years, when I found a copy of the game at a local used game store and finally got to soak in the game in all its glory. Having learned to read after my toddler years, I was able to read all the dialogue between the characters and take in the game's sense of humor. There were even some jokes that were in a game that I couldn't believe was rated E for everyone. Yeah, the E rating. That used to be a thing. And I can't talk about Banjo-Kazooie without talking about the soundtrack. The franchise has my favorite video game soundtracks ever. These were toe-tapping tracks that stuck with me all the way into adulthood. Heck, I'm listening to the soundtrack right now as I write the script for this video. Grant Kirkhope is truly a master of not just video game music, but music in general. The music of the game is the glue that holds Banjo-Kazooie all together to make it a classic of its genre and its art. Banjo-Kazooie is a game that has it all: challenge, exploration, music, humor, and fun. Going back to my first time playing, I didn't think the pinnacle of games could get any higher than that. That was until I saw this commercial in the year 2000 while watching Saturday morning cartoons. Yes, that used to be a thing too.
I don't think you know what you're doing! You need a parachute! That's a backpack!
Oh, alright. Kazooie? Oh.
Banjo and Kazooie have disconnected, now working individually and as a team to tackle their biggest adventure yet, Banjo-Tooie. Rated E for everyone. Just remember, bears still need a bird to fly.
I got so hyped. A sequel to Banjo-Kazooie? The first one was already a masterpiece. How are they going to top it? I rented it when I saw it on the shelves at the video store, took it home, and played it. Now, how do I put this? Banjo-Tooie is an example of how sequels should be done. 2 years after Gruntilda was defeated by Banjo and Kazooie, her sisters arrive and resurrect her. Wanting revenge for being defeated, Gruntilda vows to destroy the bear and bird duo, along with everybody they love, using her new weapon, the B.O.B., which stands for Big Old Blaster. It's up to Banjo and Kazooie to go on a journey and end Grunty's reign of terror. Banjo-Tooie was a perfect example of both being something old and something new at the same time. It had the same basic gameplay as the predecessor, but it took full advantage of everything that couldn't be put in the first game. The worlds were expanded to the point where it would take you a full day's gameplay just to complete one. Banjo learned even more moves and abilities that added a new sense of fun to the game. Mumbo became a playable character, giving him the ability to unlock even more missions. Several new characters were added that can't be talked about in one video. Each world had its own boss, which added a new sense of challenge and epic scope to the game. The soundtrack was home to even more catchier tunes than the first game, if that was even possible. Most notable of all, Banjo and Kazooie were given the ability to split up and each become separate playable characters, adding some variety to the game that we didn't know we needed. The whole game was nothing but improvements on what the previous game already did right. The game even felt more like an adventure, as instead of taking place all in Grunty's castle like in the first one, you explore an overworld that leads to all these different worlds. Where Banjo and Kazooie felt like an adventure, Banjo-Tooie felt like a quest. Again, I didn't manage to beat the game as a kid due to the fact it made the first one look like a game of Pac-Man, but I did get a player's guide for the game when it first came out, and I read the heck out of it when I was little. The end of the book showed a screen cap of Gruntilda saying, "Just you wait until Banjo 3. My mind was completely blown. A third one? There's going to be a third one? My young mind couldn't handle all the imagination I had going through my head at the time. Banjo-Tooie was as perfect as perfection can get. How could they possibly top it? Banjo 3 was going to be the best game I'd ever played, and being a kid with no sense of how time worked, I was willing to wait forever for it if I needed to. Flash forward to 2003, I'd gotten a GameCube 2 years previous, still waiting for the new Banjo-Kazooie game. Another one of my favorite gaming franchises, Super Smash Bros., made such a huge jump from the Nintendo 64 to the GameCube that I couldn't wait to see my favorite Bear and Burt finally make a splash on the new system as well. Well, it turns out I was looking in the wrong place. I remember I was looking through the Game Boy Advance games in a Walmart, and what do I see? Banjo-Kazooie, Grunty's Revenge. Finally seeing a new Banjo-Kazooie game shattered any skepticism I would have had. I instantly got excited as my birthday was coming up and asked my mom to get it for me that year. My birthday came, I opened the box and popped that sucker into my Game Boy Advance, ready to get the Banjo-Kazooie game I'd been waiting for. The game sucked. For starters, due to it being a handheld device, the game made the first Banjo-Kazooie look like an epic quest. It's not a sequel of Banjo-Tooie, but a sequel to... the first one? Are you kidding me? Banjo-Tooie already did that. Did they forget they made a sequel already? Anyway, 2 months after the events of Banjo-Kazooie, Gruntilda's minion, Klungo, builds her a mechanical body, which is possessed by her spirit, and she swears revenge on Banjo and Kazooie. Then you set off on a journey to stop her. I use the term journey very loosely. For starters, unlike the previous game, this one had an overhead view very similar to that of a Zelda game. This caused the game to feel very claustrophobic for me. My favorite part of the franchise was entering new worlds and being able to bask in all the discovery that's waiting to be made as you're able to look at them through a third-person view. This game lacked that. Everything that I loved about the games for the Nintendo 64 were null and void. There wasn't even any music from Grant Kirkhope to make it even attempt to feel like a Banjo-Kazooie game. The game just felt like a neuter version of the Banjo-Kazooie I loved. A cheap discount that you find in a bargain bin that suckers people who think they're getting the real deal into buying it. I barely remember anything from the game, except the fact that I gave up on it before I got very far. What a crappy birthday that was. Was that the game I'd been waiting for? Was it the game's fault? Or was the hype I had for a Banjo-Tooie sequel too high that no game could live up to it? I don't know. All I know is, I gave up waiting for a new Banjo-Kazooie game. I guess it just wasn't meant to be. When I was doing some research on the internet around 2006, I found out why there wasn't a new Banjo-Kazooie game for the GameCube. Rare, the company that made Banjo-Kazooie, was bought by Microsoft. Microsoft? The company that releases first-person shooters for the Xbox? What the heck were they doing with Banjo-Kazooie? Any doubts I had were soon shattered when I found this. Was this it? Was this finally going to be the game that I've been waiting for? A game that wasn't a cheap knockoff for the Game Boy and was actually a spiritual sequel? A game so massive that it was taking 6 years to make? That sold me. I was a PS2 and Nintendo kid, but I was willing to get an Xbox 360 just to get it. Finally, the long-awaited Banjo game was going to live up to the hype that I had. This was going to be fantastic. However, I'd grown wiser at that point, and it wasn't until the game was close to the release date when the title was revealed. Banjo-Kazooie, Nuts and Bolts. That's right, it was going to be a kart racing game. What? Yeah, cause that's what I'd spent 8 years waiting for. Banjo-Kazooie's answer to Mario Kart. I decided that it wasn't worth getting an Xbox for that. I'd been let down yet again. No matter, my interest in video games was starting to wane once I started going to high school, so I just accepted the fact that Banjo-Kazooie 3E was never going to come. Sometimes, you just gotta learn to let things die. Then, yet again, I heard of an independent game that was being developed by former members of Rare and the developers of the Banjo-Kazooie series, Yooka-Laylee. Seeing the test footage, it looks like the Banjo 3E game that I never got. Updated graphics, a bigger sense of adventure, colorful environments, and even Grant Kirkhope is back doing the music. The only difference is, it's not Banjo-Kazooie. Well, no matter. They say lightning never strikes twice in the same place. I hope Yooka-Laylee is a success and starts a new trend in games. Most of the reason I lost interest in games is due to all the first-person shooters that were coming out. It's like nobody was wanting to be creative anymore. They were just making the same shooters over and over again because of money. So, I'm glad to see that there are people out there who are trying to keep 3D platformers alive and make video games fun again. I highly doubt it will be enough to get me back into gaming, as I've now dedicated my life to making animations, artwork, reading, and watching cartoons. But it brings a smile on my face to see if my favorite gaming franchise is still being remembered in one way or another. The Banjo-Kazooie games for the Nintendo 64 are as golden and rare as the jiggies that you collect in them. They are games that allow you to escape the mundane aspects of life and go on an adventure that will never be forgotten. Whether you're young or old, Banjo-Kazooie is the game for the explorer in all of us. I'd like to give a big and personal thank you to the crew of Rare for making such wonderful games and helping to make my childhood awesome by giving me these beautiful pieces of art. I hope they live on for years to come and future generations play them and get the sense of wonder and imagination that I got from them. Do you folks have any memories of the Banjo-Kazooie games? If you have, let's talk about them in the comments below. Until next week, take it easy, fam!